Good afternoon, New York SADD. I am here with Karen Torres, and we are going to chat today about work zone safety. It is Work Zone Safety Awareness Week. It is really, really important and something that is very near and dear to Karen's heart. And she will talk more about her story and more about work zone safety in a little bit, but let's just kick this off with why we're talking about this, other than the obvious, because work zone safety is really important. But with it being the observation week, we need to make sure that we're addressing some things about work zone safety that you may or may not know. I know when I was going through driver's ed, 300 years ago, they didn't really go over a lot of the things we needed to know about driving in a work zone. So we need to address this, particularly because we see so many fatalities and injuries through work zone crashes. This is something that is particularly big on arterial roads. I'm not going to go way into what different roads look like, but an arterial road would be something that's like where lanes cross over one another, say at four-way stop signs, things like that. Some with like typically 45, 55 mile per hour speed, so a decent rate of speed. That's where we're seeing most of our crashes. Again, really important because a lot of these fatalities are happening with drivers and passengers. It is typically a driver and potentially a worker on the side of the road as well that are involved in this crash and are the victim of an injury or a fatality. And this is not something that's escaping New York. We have had our fair share of crashes. This is definitely something that we need to focus on, especially when we're talking about speed in a work zone. This is one of our biggest factors for crashes in work zones. So we need to be very conscious of our speed and those changing speeds as we go through work zones. And we also need to be looking at, why different crashes happen, how they happen, and being aware of the different things and solutions that we can use to make sure that we are avoiding these crashes and paying better attention. So I am not an expert on this subject. However, I do know an expert on this subject, and her name is Karen Torres, and she's going to talk to you now.
All right, Karen. Okay, let me try and get my presenting now. Of course, I already messed it up.
No, you got this. I'm proud of you.
Look at this. Do you see that yet?
I don't.
Of course not, because I just went over this with you. And okay, so I'm going to present now.
Yep, pick a window.
And a window. And I am going to hit this. Do we see it yet?
Not yet.
Share.
There it is.
All right.
Awesome.
Getting closer. Okay. Do we see it now?
We can.
Okay, great. Let me go to full screen. Okay. Thank you so much, Lauren, for having me today. This is a subject that I do hold very close to my heart. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Karen Torres, and I am a road safety speaker, advocate for distracted driving, deadly consequences. I have been working with SADD for the past year, absolutely love it. I am a speaker for the past 10 years. I travel all over the country speaking to teens and adults about roadway safety. I absolutely love my job. I do love my job. It's very fulfilling. I think that work zones do not get, like as you had said, that you went to, you were in driver's ed 10,000 years or 300 years ago, so that means I was in about 1,000 years ago. But it does not get enough attention. And that's why I was very excited that I could speak with you today. This is National Work Zone Awareness Week, and what that means is every year a different state, will do the kickoff week. They also have a mobile memorial, which has the names of all those brave men and women who have lost their lives in a work zone related crash. And it's every spring, because springtime is when they kick off. Of course, it's construction time, and they want to make sure that the awareness for drivers, is out there to slow down and to move over. And I think what a lot of people don't realize that it's not just that you have to slow down in work zones it's not just highway workers, it's utility workers, it's cable workers, it's bridge and tunnel workers. You have the water authority is out there. So there's not just one certain type of work zone that you should be aware of. There's just so many, and you really need to pay attention, slow down, and move over. And the biggest thing that I think road workers feel is that they don't get recognized, and their job is really more frowned upon. And let me show you a video to help you understand that.
Every day is frightening. I don't think people look at us as human beings when they drive through the work zones. They dehumanize us. We are a nuisance. We are what keeps you from getting to where you want to be. And the irony is that we're the ones that are making it safe so that you can make it to those places.
When every time I see that, it breaks my heart. Shame on us for making them feel that way. Nobody likes traffic. Nobody likes sitting there, waiting for them to, for the workers to continue the construction that they need, if we have to, merge into lanes. But this is their job. It's just like we go to our job. This is their job. And it's up to us to also help keep them safe. I'm going to share a story with you about this cement truck. The driver of this cement truck was in Eastport, Long Island, on Sunrise Highway. He had just finished his work, and he was heading back to his employer. And as he jumped onto Sunrise Highway, he came upon a work zone that was being led by the New York State Department of Transportation. There was a crew of guys out there filling in potholes. So they had the right lane closed off, and they had arrow boards directing everyone to merge to the left. Well, as he was merging, not only was he speeding, okay, he's doing 60 in a 45, he was just drinking a bottle of water, and the bottle of water had slipped from his hands. So he reached down to pick it up. But when he reached down to pick it up, not only did he take his eyes off the road, but he pulled the steering wheel down with him. And by the time he looked back up, he had crossed over that closed lane, and he slammed to the work zone. And that's where he hit and killed a worker. And that worker was my father, Patrick Mapleson. And my dad is the reason why I go out and I share his story, so that I can encourage others to make safe decisions when they're going through a work zone. My father was killed on St. Patrick's Day of 2006. It's just been 14 years, and I can tell you that I still feel it in my heart. I can cry, at any time. The loss of my father's presence is missed every single day. His birthday was just the day before. He had just turned 66. He was going to retire in 7 months, and that was all taken away from him because of a distracted driver in a work zone. My dad's birthday, I called him up to wish him a happy birthday, and it was a Thursday, and we made plans for him to come over that Sunday to celebrate. And he said, I asked him what I can make him for dinner, and he said, oh, you make me those chicken enchiladas that you make. And I said, you got it, Dad. And he said, I'll see you Sunday, sweetheart. And I hung up, and the next morning I went food shopping. I even bought his birthday cake, and when I came home, my phone was ringing, and I'll never forget it. 11:01 a.m. It's a phone call that has completely changed my life. It was the dispatcher from the DOT telling me I needed to get to the hospital, that my dad was just hit on the highway. And I mean, you can't imagine unless you ever experienced it. I mean, I just screaming at this poor man. I'm like, is my father dead? Is he hurt? Is he in a coma? What happened? And the man just said, Karen, I don't know. You have to get to the hospital. I always say, thank God my husband was home that morning to drive me, because I was shaking so uncontrollably. I've never experienced that before, where I couldn't stop myself from shaking. And I remember we pulled into the emergency room, and I saw the ambulance and 2 Suffolk County police cars, and my heart sank. And as I walked in, there was a nurse waiting for me at the door, and she said, are you Patrick's daughter? And I said, yes. And she put her arm around me, and I said, oh my God, my father's dead. My father's dead, he's dead. And then I saw my sister walking down the hallway with 2 doctors, and I mean, forget it. The 2 of us were just screaming. And I remember hugging her and thinking and saying to her, Lori, they have the wrong family. You know, this doesn't happen to us. You know, these are the things that happen to other families. And I just spoke with Dad 14 hours ago. You know, he's coming over Sunday for dinner. Like, I just went out and bought his cake. Like, this isn't, you feel like you're so outside your body, like something like this doesn't happen to you. And the doctor, they took me and they put me in this room, and you know, they were trying to talk to me, and I said, you know, please, I want to go see my dad. And she said, no, Karen, I'm sorry, but you can't. And I said, why? Please, I want to say goodbye to my dad. And she said, you can't. And I said, why? Then they explained what happened. So like I had said, my dad and his crew were out filling in the potholes. And anytime that they have a crew on a highway, they always have a DOT truck that has a big bumper on the back of it. It's called an attenuator. It's a crash mechanism. So God forbid something like this happens, that truck is positioned there to protect the crew. Well, the driver that was sitting in that truck can see the cement truck starting to veer to the right. So he started wailing on the horn and just started screaming for all the workers to run. Well, the workers couldn't see what was happening, so they all ran to the left. But my dad ran to the right, literally right into the path of the truck. The driver of the cement truck told me that when he looked up, him and my father actually locked eyes. And then my father stopped to try to shield himself from the impact. And that always weighs so heavy on my heart, knowing that my dad saw the whole thing coming. You know, at 60 miles an hour, my dad's head hit the bumper. You could see his blood on the bumper, and then he was run over. You actually could see his blood on the tire. My dad went up through that wheel well, and he was thrown in the air like a rag doll. That's what the witnesses said that were passing by. They saw a man in the air like a rag doll. And when he landed, he was completely disfigured from the top of his head to the tip of his toes. And that's why they would let me go see him. She said, Karen, please just remember him the way he was. But since my dad left his wallet in the work truck that morning, they still needed a family member to ID him. And because they wouldn't let me, my brother, or my sister do it, my husband had to do it. And he said, Karen, the nurse brought me into the room, and your dad was in the body bag on the gurney. And she brought me over, and she unzipped it just enough to take out his arm. And he said, you know, I held his hand. He was still a little warm. He said, I knew it was Dad because my dad had arthritis, so he had the bigger knuckles. He's like, I knew it was Dad, but for you, I knew I needed to be 100% sure. So he asked the nurse to unwrap his face. And my husband has said from that moment, his mind has been forever fractured. He actually had nightmares for 1.5 years of what he saw. He had to go see a psychotherapist to help him get the images out of his head. You know, I can't even imagine what my dad looked like. And this is all because simply somebody took their eyes off the road for 2 seconds to pick up a water bottle. You know, it's all it takes. You know, you could kill someone just like that. You know, it doesn't matter how long we've been driving. It doesn't matter what great, safe drivers we all think we are. It's about those 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds that you choose to take your eyes off the road to do something else. That's truly what matters. The man that killed my dad was not a young, inexperienced driver. He was a retired New York City fireman. He spent his entire career saving lives. And that one poor choice he made that day, that one bad mistake, he has to live with the fact that he killed my dad. You know, did he go to jail? No. He was given a 90-day license suspension. I was given an urn with ashes. It's on my counter. I mean, it's on my shelf in my living room. I have to live with I have his ashes, and all my dad ever wanted to do was retire. You know, and it's just so sad. You know, we miss my dad so much. You know, and it's when you're going through a work zone, you have to understand that these people have families. They could be mothers, fathers, brother, sister, husband, wife, grandparent. They're somebody to someone. And we have to treat it just like that every single time. Let me share a public service announcement that my sister and I, along with my father's crew, had filmed for roadway safety for the Department of Transportation.
It was St. Patrick's Day. It happened so quick. I just yelled, Pat, it's so hard. And he was just thrown in the air.
And I saw a paramedic wiping down a gurney. And the whole time I was screaming, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, daddy."
It was horrible, you know. The bones were sticking out.
It was covered in blood.
And then when he finally came to rest, you know, it was Pat, but it wasn't Pat.
Every day, as soon as I get in my car, it's the first thing I think of. I think about him every day. My father was killed because of somebody's careless mistake. The last thing he said to me was, "I'll see you Sunday, sweetheart." And what's really hard is that Sunday, where I saw him was in his coffin.
So now we go to the side of Sunrise Highway to go visit Dad. You know, I couldn't even have an open casket for my dad. And just sitting here watching that, I remember the funeral director saying to me, "Karen, I'm really sorry, but your father is not viewable." And I just, you know, I went through, my father had about 5 pages of his autopsy report of all the things that had happened to him. And it's just, the one thing that you need to remember is that this crash was 100% preventable, 100%. You know, my dad should have been able to retire. He should have been able to spend time with his grandchildren and seeing them grow up. And he's not here for something so selfish and so preventable. Governor Cuomo is introducing the SLOW Act this coming October. The SLOW Act is slow down and look out for highway workers and pedestrians. It's imposing tougher penalties for violent actions against highway workers, motor vehicle inspectors, and motor carrier investigators. Right now, currently, if you are, you know, do a violent act on a worker, it's assault in the 3rd degree, which is a misdemeanor. But as of October 1st, under the new act, the SLOW Act, it will be assault in the 2nd degree, which is a Class D felony, which carries a prison sentence of 2 to 7 years. And I applaud that. They also are introducing 2 new crimes, or 3 new crimes, I apologize. One is new crimes, menacing a highway worker. That's intentionally place or attempt to place a highway worker in fear of death or physical injury, which will be a Class E felony, which carries a 2 to 5 year jail sentence. If convicted of assault of the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd degree against a highway worker, you're going to face an immediate 6-month suspension of your driver's license, and also intrusion into an active work zone, which no driver shall enter an active work zone unless you're directed by a person in charge of the traffic control or a traffic control device. A violation will constitute a Class B misdemeanor, punishable by a $250 to a $500 fine and up to 3 months in jail. The enhancement of pedestrian safety is that fines are now going to increase for drivers who cause injury to pedestrians or cyclists as a result of not exercising due care. The fine for causing physical injury will increase from $500 to $1,000, and the fine for a serious physical injury will increase from the current $750 to $1,500, which is I think this is phenomenal, and it should be. It should be more money.
Yeah.
You need attention 100% of the time when you're on the road. You know, I think that a lot of us are so busy doing other things that we forget, instead of paying attention 100% of the time, right? That we're doing something. You want to be connected 100% of the time, and we've all become so selfish. You know, and you have to realize that there's no message, no tweet, no Snapchat story, no email, no call, no picture, no video is worth your life or the life of someone else, you know, by 100%. And I have a quick little brain game that I like to share, because it really does show you what you can miss in a matter of a second. So I know that we can all, you know, we all think that we can multitask and do 2 things at once. So let me share the 2 brain games, and let's see how well you do. Here we go.
Let's put your brain to the test. You're going to multitask. Do 2 things at once. Now, count how many times you see my picture or name on the screen. At the same time, listen to my voice and count how many times you hear the word magic. Pay attention. Here we go. What's magic about magic is that some magic fools your eyes, while other magic fools your brain. Magic of attention is responsible for some of magic's most impressive illusions. A lot of magic is quite easy to perform, while other magic can be quite difficult to pull off. But that's magic. Harder than you thought? How many times did I say magic? How many times did you see my picture of my name?
All right, Lauren, I know you've seen these before, but you have to get both right. And I don't know if you played along, but you have to get both numbers right. And not very many people get both numbers right. I play
along with you every single time that I've seen you do this, and I still never get it right, and I know the answers.
That's exactly what I say. One more, which I think is a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at this image. We're going to alter it 5 times. Count the number of changes you see. Easy. You saw all 5 changes, right? Now we'll try it again with a new image. But this time we're going to put a second of black between each still. Try to count the number of changes you see. That one was a bit harder, wasn't it? There were actually 7 different changes. Let's take out the black frames and run it again for you. Ready? Easier now? This is a variation on a test created by psychologist Ronald Rensink, and it gives remarkable insight as to how much of the world you're missing at any given moment. In the test, the black frames represent everyday distractions.
So you can see how much you miss in one black frame. So let's say that represents, 1 second. They say the average text message can take your eyes off the road for 5 seconds. So with the environment constantly changing as you're driving, how can you ever expect it to look the same when you look back up? You think about the driver of the cement truck. Before he reached for that water bottle, he was in the left lane going straight. By the time he looked back up, he was in a completely different spot. This is Heather Hurd, my friend Russell and Kim's daughter. Just to share a very quick story. Heather loved Disney, Her parents took her there every year since she was little, and she always said that when she was going to get married, that's where she wanted to get married. Well, Heather got engaged, and she was going to get married at Disney. And they made the appointment with the wedding coordinator. And Kim and Russell were from Maryland. They flew to Florida to meet her there. And the appointment was at 1 o'clock. And they got to the appointment and they were waiting for Heather, and 15 minutes goes by and Heather's not there. Half an hour goes by, Heather still isn't there. About 45 minutes past the hour, they receive a phone call from the state police saying that Heather was involved in a crash and that they needed to get to the hospital. Well, what happened was that Heather was at a stoplight when a tractor trailer driver was texting. He was on his cell phone, and he smacked into the back of her car, killing her instantly. And I have a video. It is not Heather's crash, but it went something like this. In that clip, I do slow it down, but he or she, the driver, I believe it was a man, he had hit 7 cars in that clip. But this is Heather's car after the crash. Believe it or not, her fiance survived. He was hurt pretty bad, but Heather was killed along with another woman in a different vehicle. But this is what happens within seconds of you taking your eyes off the road, and it's just not worth it. The lives that are changed forever. You don't just kill that one person. You kill a family. You kill friendships. It's trickled down to so many. What can you do? You gotta pay attention. 100%. When you are in a work zone, you need to pay attention, you need to slow down, and you need to move over. In New York, that is the law. You need to move over. And, you know, when you're driving through a work zone, you know, act like it's your parent, child, or friend that is working there. You know, treat it like that. You wouldn't want someone that you love to get hurt or to get killed. And that's the way you should treat it every single time you go through a work zone, or honestly, anytime that you're on the road. So important. So, but I think I had one slide with my information. I'm available. Anybody can contact me if you have any questions regarding my presentation. Obviously, this is just a snippet of what I show. You can please contact me. You can contact Lauren. I would love to come to your school, your business. It's such an important topic for everyone, not just teens. Adults, honestly, is probably worse. So,
For sure.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, anytime. So I'm so happy that you were willing to do this. I know that this is not something that you would typically do, and I know it's something that is a little bit out of the box for your presentation, because it's definitely far more impactful when Karen is in front of you and your students. And by all means, please give us a shout, because as many of you know, I've contacted you before and told you we can bring Karen to your school or your community group for free. So free is for me and for you. We can all get Karen for free. And Karen does a phenomenal job at speaking to everybody, including students. I think this actually was a presentation that you had kind of put together for some Department of Transportation folks as well, too, right? Yeah. So really, anybody is welcome to book Karen. I have a couple of thoughts, and I think I'm just going to kick you out if you're okay with that.
That's fine, sure.
Let's see if we can kick out Karen. There we go. Woo! All right. So Karen was just talking about the slow laws that are going to be coming into effect really soon. I think October, we said this year, right? They should be.
Yeah, October 1st.
Okay. So I will just topple on top of that your Gdl laws, your graduated driver's licensing laws that are in effect for folks that are getting their junior licenses, junior permits. There are additional restrictions that go with that, with texting and driving, being distracted, not being sober behind the wheel. So we'll be talking more about Gdl next week, but that's definitely something that you're going to need to be hyper aware of on your junior permit, junior license when you're going through work zones, because those fines will only be double, tripled, quadrupled as a new driver or an inexperienced driver. And also when we're talking about the move over law, it's not just about construction, and it's not just about law enforcement. There's a huge misconception that the move over law is just about law enforcement and when you know, police have somebody pulled over on the side of the road. That is not true. It is for all highway workers, construction, police, ambulance, fire, EMT, and tow trucks or emergency vehicles. So any red, blue, or yellow lights is going to be part of the move over law. So we would definitely suggest you do some research on the move over law, but we'll be posting more on that all week as well. So let me see if I can get this back. We're really messing with technology today. I'm very proud of us. Let's see if it'll come back. Maybe not. It's gone forever. Why won't you return? Come on, you know you want to.
What are you looking for? Me?
I'm looking for the original presentation I had up, which is now, there it is.
Oh, good.
Oh, delightful. Okay, great. Thanks, technology. Okay, so we welcomed Karen, and Karen talked. So some safety tips that we need to address as well, especially when you're in a work zone, but really, honestly, this could be whenever. Making sure that you're staying alert, minimize those distractions, as Karen's harped on a couple of times already. You know, 1 second taking your eyes off the road could be the difference between life and death. And particularly in a work zone, that's something we need to be hyper aware of, because there's lane changes and things that are occurring that are not normally occurring on the roads. So we want to minimize all distractions. That includes the radio, any kind of eating or drinking, whatever. Keeping your headlights on. I know this is something that not everybody thinks about, but your headlights allow you to be seen that much faster. So you want to put your headlights on, even if it's not required of you to put your headlights on. Or if your car is not automatically doing that, you can make your car do it. Obviously paying attention, watching for every sign that you see, knowing what those signs mean is very important. Again, I went through driver's ed and Karen went through driver's ed 300 years ago. So like, the sign thing, we didn't have access to the internet like you all have access to now. You can look up every single sign and know what every sign means before you even get behind the wheel. Knowing what it means to merge and how to merge appropriately is very, very important in a work zone. Not tailgating, absolutely keeping your distance, staying at a safe distance from every car in front and in back of you. Obeying that speed limit. You know a speed limit is going to change as soon as you enter a work zone. You need to be very aware of how those speed limits are changing. And then as you exit the work zone, not gunning it to 112. Changing lanes safely, again, merging, making sure that you're being careful with what lines are on the road. There may be different lines than are typically on the road because of the construction that's happening. Flaggers are very, very important. You need to know what flaggers could be telling you to do. So they could be just putting a hand out, which means you should stop. They could be making different motions with the flag. Again, you should be aware of that. And expect the unexpected. I think that's one of the biggest tips that we could have here for you. We never know what's going to happen in a work zone. Maybe something comes loose from the work zone that was unexpected and starts to roll into the road. Maybe there's some sort of emergency where the workers are trying to scatter in a different direction away from whatever's happening. So you need to be very aware of what's going on, be looking at everything, scanning for whatever could be happening, and being patient. That's something that we all kind of lack, right?
Yeah.
Patience is definitely a virtue, but not all of us have it. And I'm one to tell you that I'm not the most patient human being. But the minute I get behind the wheel, and most certainly in a work zone, we want to be as patient as we possibly can. Because as Karen mentioned, and as every other work zone folk will tell you, or any other road construction crew will tell you, that everybody wants to get home to their families at night. And you being patient is going to make that an option for them. They need to be able to get home. They need you to be paying attention, and they need you to be working with them to make sure that they can get the roads safe so you can drive on them. Highly encourage you to book Karen. Please, please, please book Karen. You can give me a shout. You can reach her at the email on the screen there, or at her website, all4udad.com. That is a 4 like the number. She's also on Instagram and Facebook. She's very social. So get social with Karen. Remember, if you're going to do something with your SADD chapters, please report it ASAP. We rely on you all reporting these activities as much as possible. And if it's something that you want to get together, especially for the springtime, or I'm sorry, the fall time when we get back to classes, when we have a little bit more time in our schedule and things aren't the way they are right now, we can talk about not only having Karen at your school or your community group, but also combining that with some other traffic safety activities. We would absolutely love to make this a whole group affair. Any other parting words, Meade?
No, just thank you so much for having me. I think this was fantastic. Absolutely.
I'm glad. I know this week is something that's very special for you and for your family, so we so appreciate you sharing your story and your dad's story. And it's something, it gets me every time. So we are so very thankful for that, and we hope that all of you are able to use Karen's wise words and her experience and bring her to your schools and community groups as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.